There's a point in my life that destined me to become a writer. And that point occurred when I was 9 years old. This is during the Cultural Revolution, when chaos prevailed in China. And I was playing in the street. I was like one of those guys. I was a skinny boy with a big head, and I was out there playing. You shout fun, and I run. You shout fun again, I jump. So one day, kids were shouting in the streets and saying, let's go, there's a fun going on there. Something is happening, something very, very interesting is happening in Communist headquarters. And Yellowstone Communist headquarters is located right in one of the churches, one of the two churches the American missionaries built in the 1920s. And this particular church was very handsome. And it was, my mother said that this is the church where people worshipped on Saturday. And there's another one where people worshipped on Sunday. That's the only thing my mother remembered. But anyway, it was a handsome church. But right after the communists took over China in 1949, it was all the foreign missionaries, American missionaries, which were driven out, and it became communist headquarters with a podium where the communist leaders make their rousing speeches. And that place became the center of fun, of torture, of political meetings, and many times the beginning of political parade, which we have many. And so if you, in such a small town without electricity, without TV, without MTV, there are no iPods, no Britney Spears. I don't know whether that's good or bad. I'm not quite sure. But we didn't have her. That became a source of great enjoyment, source of great entertainment. So someone was shouting, let's go, let's go. So I was skinny, so I ran the fastest. I climbed up to this painted window, all those stained window glasses, all the way to the highest of the dome, this church. And through this broken glass, I could see someone was, and all the boys were up there, not girls. Girls were, I guess, taking care of their little siblings, but just the boys. Naughty, ugly, and really snotty too. And we were up there. We were all like monkeys hanging all over the window and saying, someone good, it's going to be good fun, because someone an adult was getting hung by both thumbs to the ceiling by a rough rope, and his feet barely touching the ground. And 5 young militiamen were beating the heck out of him. And this man was sort of spinning, and the cartridge was down there smoking and laughing, and obviously torturing this guy. And I was laughing, but I knew that, maybe you were not supposed to be laughing, because that man was crying very bad. And you have ever heard adult crying when they have this guttural, there's this animalistic cry bursting. The man's throat was swelling, and he was in great pain, crying like an animal. And I was listening, and I was laughing, and this man's voice began to sound very familiar. And then when the wind blew and this man's robe sort of swiveled over, I saw my father's face. And slowly, I climbed down the window. A friend said that's your dad getting beaten up. And I was climbing, I didn't see anything. I was struck by a sense of, I don't know what it is. It was a humiliation, embarrassment, and pain, very, very deep pain. But I didn't know how to express that. All I knew to do was climbing down slowly and walk home on a shady side of the street rather than the bright side of the street where the sun was shining. I didn't know why I did that. I must be embarrassed. I was very humiliated. I was ashamed of myself. And that day, that walk home was, I wanted to to rush home to tell my mother that my father is getting beaten up, and the way he's getting beaten up, he might be dead very soon, because I get a glimpse of his face. It was all bloody, and but it was such a long trip, the longest trip home as well, because I could not quite face the moment when I had to tell my mother that father is getting beaten up almost to death, and I, as a young boy, big boy, I didn't do anything. I didn't even say anything to defend my father. And as it turned out, it was because my father had received a letter that day from my uncle who had been living in Taiwan. And Taiwan was considered an enemy because it was a friend of America, so it was considered an enemy of China. So they accused my father of being an American spy, and I told my mother, and my mother went upstairs. She didn't know what to do either. I remember her climbing up to our attic and praying to the Buddha, the statue of Buddha. The only thing that she knew to do under such duress. And her prayer must have been answered, because my father didn't die that day. And that very day destined me to want to write, because that was the day when the little skinny country boy with big head became a man.